Hello and welcome to Chapter 13, Deadly Bite. Oh, looks like Bermuda has left us for the time being. Oh well, he will be back. So let's see. Where we were left was they had the fight to get into the land of the centaurs and had his fight with the centaur guard, got kicked, his leg got injured. He ended up meeting NL, which is CL's niece, and did a physical healing, or started it anyway, and then realized that she has a much larger core and she has a real issue with a bulge on her core. So it's going to blow up soon. So anyway, and then he convinced a few of the centaurs that that they really did have magic and they really did have cores. Okay, so the last chapter finished. He goes to sleep at night, and we're picking up on Chapter 13, Deadly Bite. I had a restless night and got up to pee twice. Both times it took a while before the pain subsided enough for me to sleep again. T and his grove were on the ball though, and by morning I was feeling better. I was also feeling happy. Not stoner happy like when I had my full body healing, but more of a relaxing by the beach with an umbrella drink kind of happy. I scanned my leg and it was thick with moss, mushrooms, and healing flowers. "Hello, mate," a cheerful voice said. I looked over to find an angel in my bed. I knew this celestial being, and she liked to play tricks. Her name was Anna Lickett. She sported a Wonder Woman motif this time, with reds, blues, and gold. Her purple hair was long and curly, like Gal Gadot, and her wings were outlined using the golden lasso of truth. Just to spice things up a bit, she also donned extra huge boobs and chunky girl hip pads. And to add some extra pop, her nails were screaming red, 3 inches long and splattered with gold stars. This drag queen does not fade into the background. Oh no. "Hi, Anna," I said, blinking the sleepy out of my eyes. "You look positively wonderful." She preened and flipped her hair. "Well, I am all woman." We laughed together. After all, puns are the highest form of humor. "To what do I owe this summoning?" she inquired. I showed her my leg. My right thigh was one big ugly bruise. It looked like it had been painted by Vincent van Gogh with dark shades of blue mixed in with black and green. "Oh, Ducky," she winced. "That looks painful. Look on the bright side, though. At least it wasn't your third leg." I winced myself. The thought of that kick hitting my naughty bits was cringeworthy. "After all," she continued, "it would be terrible if something happened to your best feature." "I thought my best feature was my winning smile," I retorted. "Tyler always said he loved my smile. And my eyes. He liked my eyes, too." "You are so precious," she laughed in her husky voice. "You just keep right on telling yourself that. Now, are we going to shower together or what?" Anna Lickett was a lusty drag queen with a wicked sense of humor. I don't think there was anything we could talk about that she couldn't turn into an innuendo. It gets old after a few days, but in small doses she is hysterical. "Sure," I said. "Let's get wet and naked. After all, two can play that game." In spite of the bruising, my leg was a lot better already. I was sore and I was limping hard, but at least the pain didn't take my breath away like it had last night. Anna was up to her old tricks as she tried to get me to make a mess in the bathroom. She kept on moving the toilet around me as I tried to pee. I was wise to that though, and I just sat down on the throne. Then I peed. "Move it now, Miss Smarty Pants." She also tried to start a water fight in the shower. We were having a good time until I realized I was getting water everywhere. Then I just ignored her as best I could and focused on getting clean. I didn't want to make a huge mess, knowing CL would have to clean it up. That wouldn't be fair to him. Plus, he'd probably think I'd lost my mind or something. Bermuda came into the bathroom, hopped up on the back of the toilet, settled down, and enjoyed the show. Annalika gave him plenty of space. She'd messed with him once, and his claws had popped her like a soap bubble. She wasn't eager to try that again. All her antics and running commentary were great for keeping my mind off my injury, which I appreciated. Sure, she might be outrageous, but she also used her powers for good. That's why, as I was brushing my teeth, it caught me by surprise when I ran out of energy and had a sudden feeling like I was going to collapse. I knew from experience that rapid healing could really take the stamina out of a person, but this was intense. I was just about to get on the floor and start crawling to the bed when I heard a knock on the bedroom door. I yelled for whoever it was to come in. Anyone who could get into our suite had probably already seen me naked. I heard footsteps, and then Balaji poked his head into the bathroom. "Holy shit," he explained. "I know, it's big," I replied with false modesty. "And it's his best feature," Annalika added. "Not that, man, your leg," Balaji said. "Yeah, I got in a fight last night with the Centaur Llama guard and got kicked pretty hard." Balaji paused as he tried to process that statement. "Do what?" "It's a long story," I said. "Meanwhile, I seem to have run out of energy. Can you help me get back to bed?" "Of course," he replied. He put my arm around his shoulder, and he held onto my waist as I hobbled painfully back into the bedroom. I'd been feeling better, but now I'd gone and overdone it. I was exhausted. We'd almost made it to the bed when there was a knock on the door. It was Amaya. "Holy shit," she exclaimed. "I know, it's big," I said. "You get used to it," Balaji also ran with my humor. "And it's his best feature," Annalika chimed in. Amaya sighed. "Not that, silly, your leg." "Yes. Yeah, I got kicked by a Centaur Llama." "Say what?" There was a knock on the door. It was Sandy. "Wow," she said. "I know, it's big," I replied. "You really do get used to it," Balaji deadpanned. "Voted best feature in Man magazine," Annalika added. Sandy and Amaya just looked at each other and rolled their eyes. "Why don't you get dressed and tell us your story again over breakfast?" Sandy suggested. Sandy and Amaya left, and Balaji stayed to help. I put on a t-shirt and sweatpants. There was no way I was going with jeans today. Even getting into sweatpants was pure torture. By the time I made it to the couch in the greeting room, I was very glad to just sit down. I also discovered I was ravenous and shoveled food into my mouth while I told the story again. "Wow," Balaji said. 52 to 1 odds? That's crazy." "Really?" Amaya said flatly. "That's what you got out of all that?" Balaji just grinned at her. "I think you need to tread carefully, Jason," Amaya said. "If you can save NL's life and she becomes a mage, this will be a huge thing for the Centaurs. She will be an instant celebrity and her life will change overnight. That's not always a good thing." "I was thinking along those lines too," I replied. I'm sure there is still a crowd of reporters outside her door even now, wanting to see how all this turns out. Is there anything you could suggest to make this better?" "I'll request an audience with the Grand Matron and let her know your theory and what has happened," Maya replied. "I'm sure she can work with the Centaur Council to keep the chaos to a minimum. This is really going to change the Centaur world, though, and I think it will be for the good. What the mage did to them has been a sore spot for a long time. Helping them as a people transition back into magical beings will alter the lives of thousands of Centaurs. What you're doing is truly a remarkable thing, Jason." "Well, I haven't succeeded yet," I said. "I think you will," Amaya said with authority. At that moment, she was speaking as a head of house. "You are a resourceful person. You found a problem, identified the cause, and I know you will follow through on the cure. If you need my help with anything, just ask." I nodded gratefully. It felt nice that she had confidence in me. On the other hand, confidence wasn't exactly a solution. "Are you up for going to the discussions today?" Sandy asked. "You are more than welcome to stay here and recover." "I'd rather go," I said. "Staying here would be boring and drive me crazy after a bit. I just need help getting there. After that, I can just simply sit and listen." "I can take care of getting you there," Balaji said. And sure enough, he did. Once Sandy was ready, he picked me up, and we flew to the first discussion. I decided I really liked flying. There's something about whizzing along with the wind in your face that's positively exhilarating. Anna Lickett, meanwhile, decided she had a huge crush on Balaji. She thought he was the manly man incarnate and wanted to father his children, or at least spend many sweaty hours trying. I told her that made no sense, and she suggested I ran my hands all over his muscles and see if that changed my mind. All through the first discussion, she did nothing but profess her undying love for him. She sat on his lap, whispered sweet nothings in his ear. When that wasn't enough, she put his face between her giant titties and got her motorboat on. She was imaginary, so Balaji didn't know any of this was happening, but it was distracting as hell. I was back to being very happy, so I tried my best not to laugh. Balaji started wondering why I kept looking at him, so I finally had to confess my secret. He thought it was fun, so he started asking me what she was doing. I shared her best one-liners and her more outrageous moments with him, and he got a real kick out of it. I had no idea what that discussion was about, as I was finding it hard to focus. The second discussion wasn't much better. This time Anna decided that Balaji wasn't paying enough attention to her, so he was out. Instead, she was going to work the room and get the crowd warmed up. There were lots of people in lots of outfits, so there was plenty of material for her to work with. She was being extra bad, so I had to edit a bit when I was relaying it on to Balaji. Balaji found the speaker boring too, so he told me to tell her he was sorry he'd ignored her and wanted to make it up to her. Could he buy her a drink? That reminded Anna she was thirsty, so she clacked her giant nails and summoned her pool boy. He showed up in a wetsuit, which was way more covered than I'd seen him before, except the suit was crotchless and assless. It was done up in Wonder Woman colors and should have been too much, but somehow he made it work. This time she got one of those delicious drinks that's in a yard-long tube. It was neon green and looked toxic, but she said it was delicious. Fortunately, in the middle of Anna Lickett's head trip, Fortunately, in the middle of my Anna Lickett head trip, Sandy was able to get what she came for. She was doing a great job of taking notes and asking questions. The speakers loved her and gave her lots of attention. There were snacks in the back of the room, and I was still crazy hungry. Balaji ran food for me for a while, but the centaur llamas that were serving started bringing me food on their own. I was a little shocked at how much I was eating, but I rationalized that I was still a growing young man. The centaur llamas knew who I was, and after a few trips, they asked me to sign autographs. It was weird being a bit famous, but I signed their stuff anyway. Bermuda came and laughed as he wanted. The house loved him, and I don't think he could get lost if he tried. The day went on with speaker after speaker. I had food, Anna Lickett for entertainment, and room to stretch out my leg. I think I was more wasted than I realized, but I was happy and Sandy was well taken care of, so all was well. During the last discussion, I noticed Anna Lickett was starting to fade out, and I wasn't feeling as happy anymore. If I wanted to have a serious chat with Anna, I needed to hurry up and make it happen. It wouldn't seem like an 8-foot-tall, purple-haired angel drag queen would be wise, but she'd imparted some good wisdom to me already. We'd had a whole conversation about being safe versus being home the first time we talked that still resonated with me. I couldn't be safe. I'd never be totally out of danger, but I could be loved. I could have a home. I could support others and have them support me, and she'd help me realize that. Anna, I've been wanting to ask you about how to solve NL's problem, I said seriously. Then I told her everything I knew about NL and her core. Anna already knew everything, of course, as she was part of my subconscious, but it was still nice to lay it all out again. Well, Ducky, let me have a think. She ordered another drink from her crotchless, assless pool boy and took a long, noisy slurp. She was drinking out of a large mason jar, and I think it was some sort of flavored moonshine. I thought she would pop up with something right away, but she actually sat and thought about it for a while. She put her arm around my shoulder and we cuddled for a bit. It was quite lovely. You smell nice, I murmured. Well, thank you, she replied. It is Guerlain Mon Guerlain. It is a great long-lasting perfume that is feminine and floral, yet also has a confident sharpness to it. After all, it's not enough to just look good. She paused thoughtfully. Maybe that is your answer. Let me ask this question. What comes first for a drag queen, the look or the performance? Well, that was an interesting turn to the conversation. I had no idea where she was going with this, but I was happy to play along. For a drag queen, I would think the look comes first, I said confidently. Let's test that theory, she said, and got to her feet. She hopped up on stage with the speaker and did a performance of My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion. It was awful. She sang the words either too late or too early. She made this walking motion with her heart, but it screamed amateur hour. It could have been campy and fun, but it just wasn't. The whole thing was cringeworthy from start to finish. After the performance was over, she took a bow, went too low, and fell off the stage. She got up, staggered over, and sat down breathlessly beside me. Well, Ducky, what do you think? I didn't think it was possible for you to look that bad, I told her. Even though you were put together well and smelled nice, your performance made you look awful. Of course, she said mysteriously. Care to change your answer? Oh, yes, I replied. I'm now thinking a good performance could rescue any look. Let's test that theory too, she said, and got back on stage again. This time she tongue-popped, and suddenly everything about her was wrong. Her lashes were so long she had trouble keeping her eyes open. Her makeup was rough and looked like it had been slapped on with a trowel. Her hip pads had changed into old pillows, and they looked lumpy as hell. Even her magnificent boobs had changed, and now they were way too small. They looked like raisins on a humpback whale. This time she performed It's All Coming Back to Me Now by Celine Dion, and it was a master class in entertaining. Her lip syncing was spot on. Her movements were heartfelt and matched the lyrics. She even went campy for a bit with Coming Back to Me, and somehow it worked. Despite all that, though, it was hard to look at her. A 6-year-old girl could do better makeup than that, and at least a 6-year-old girl would look cute. Anna just looked tragic. Train wreck tragic. Anna ended with a flourish and sashayed over to sit beside me again. She gave another tongue pop and snapped back to her usual beautiful self. What did you think this time? She asked. I honestly didn't think you would look so bad, I said. Your performance was amazing, but everything else, ugh. So, what is your answer? Anna asked. I thought for a moment. The answer is you have to change the question. It's not either one or the other, it's both. They both have to be there. A drag queen needs both looks and performance. Even if they aren't gold level caliber, they still need to be there. So how does this relate to your problem with NL's magic? Anna asked. How did this relate? I still needed to keep her magic from exploding. With no aura, her magic would just waft away. I thought I had a solution to that, but I wasn't sure it would work. I need to change the question, I said. I've been wondering how to fix her magic, but it's more than that. I need to think how I can make her a whole person. This is more than just her magic. This includes her aura, too. I've been focusing on making sure her magic doesn't get away, but I also need to figure out how to get her hard, crusty shell of an aura back to the way it needs to be. She needs both, her aura and her magic. Anna nodded sagely. I don't know that's the whole problem, but it's a start. It's certainly a more complex question than you started with. She put her hands on either side of my face and gave me a kiss on the lips, llama style. Then she got up and clacked her nails to summon her pool boy. He offered her his hand, and together they sashayed away. I spent the rest of the discussion running scenarios through my mind. By the time the day was done, I had a plan. It wasn't a complete plan, and I wanted to discuss it with Sandy first, but it was a plan. After the head of household talks were over, we had a quick huddle to figure out what we were going to do with the rest of the night. The captain had arranged for NL's core healing that night after the dance, so there wasn't any reason not to go. Sandy had asked how my leg was doing if I wanted to go. My leg was certainly feeling better. I wasn't ready to run or dance, but I did want to go. Amaya left at that point and Balaji flew me back to the room. We said goodbye and he promised to come back later to pick me up again. I opened the door and we went inside, only to be greeted by CL and NL. "Oh my goodness," I said in shock. "What are you guys doing here?" Then I realized that might sound like we didn't want them there, which was not the case at all. Sandy gasped and then went straight over to hug NL. That set the right tone, so we had hugs all around. CL was still formal, but he was getting used to this hug thing now. "NL's finished her healing this morning," CL said, "so we did a few things to get ready for tonight and then snuck out of our apartment and ran here." "You ran here?" Sandy asked in wonder. NL nodded as she started to tear up. Sandy hugged her again, and for a moment they just cried and laughed together. CL stood by, his chest puffed out, and he couldn't stop smiling. Today he was a proud and happy uncle. He looked like he was ready to cry too, so I went with a manly question. "How did you sneak out of your place? The last time we were there, the hallway was packed with recorders." "Word had gotten around that the guard was coming for us that night, so nobody expected us to make a move on our own," CL said. "I'm sure some of them were taking a break, so the hallway wasn't totally crowded. Once we got out the door, we started running and didn't stop until we got here." "She can run like that now?" I asked. That was awesome news. "Oh yes," CL's eyes twinkled. "She's fast. If anything, she's faster than me." "Wow," I said, "that is very good to hear. And now let's take a quick look at you and see how you move now." "Of course," she laughed, giving a twirl. There wasn't much room for her to move in our sitting room, so it wasn't like she could run or anything, but even that twirl told me everything I needed to know. Her movements were smooth and light. Her legs were longer, and they all seemed to be the same length. When she stood there, her stance was centered and her spine looked straight. Basically, she looked like a normal, athletic centaur llama. I closed my eyes and checked her out with my magic sight. The view was even better from the inside. Her heart was large and healthy and her lungs looked powerful. No wonder she'd been able to run all the way here. Her muscles looked supple and toned. She looked like an athlete on the inside too. I checked out my 2 Ents. They seemed relaxed and happy with how their work had turned out. They still had plenty of power, and the 3 gem cell batteries were all over half full. I asked if they wanted to stay or come home, and they all said they were going to stay until they ran out of power. I was happy she had healed so well, but I was really surprised she'd been able to start running so quickly after not running for her whole life. She'd been able to get around, of course, but she hadn't been running. Maybe centaurs had an innate ability to run, sort of how like ducks have a natural ability to swim. It didn't really matter anyway. Now she could run, she was running, and loving every minute of it. The only thing that didn't look better was her core. It looked worse. The bulge was even more pronounced. I was glad we were going to work on it tonight. The way it looked now, I wasn't sure it would last the week. "You look amazing, NL," I told her. "Just amazing. How do you feel?" "I always had an idea of what it would be like to run," she said, "but this is even better than I'd hoped it would be. To go from not running to have it be effortless in less than a day is just unbelievable." She paused, her eyes shining. "There are no words." She seemed to search for the words anyway. Then she laughed. "Really, there are no words. I can say thank you, though. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart, thank you." "You are more than welcome," I said, smiling. "We still need to work on your core, but then you will be all fixed up and good to go." I said that like it was no big deal, even though I knew better. "That is happening tonight, right?" she asked. "Yes," I replied, "unless you want me to try it right now." "Oh no," she said quickly, "I'm not ready. I want to give it a few more hours yet." She reached out for her uncle's hand and got a serious look. "I know working on my core is risky. Nobody has ever recovered from the wasting. If you can pull it off, I'll be the first centaur llama that survives." She looked at CL. "I've been told that this is urgent, so I'm ready to try later, but let's hold off until then." "Of course," I said sympathetically. "I completely understand." For someone whose life was on the line, she was holding up very well. As for myself, I was trying not to think about the implications too much. I like to think of it as a puzzle that needed solving. If I thought too much about the fact that I might kill her, I'd get nervous and tight. I need to be my best, focusing on what the possible horrible outcome. I needed to be at my best, and focusing on the possible horrible outcome wouldn't bring that out in me. Come, you must get ready for the dance. CL motioned for me to head into the bedroom. All is prepared. Wondering what exactly that meant, I waved goodbye to Sandy and NL and headed into my room. I'd wondered what type of dance we were headed into. Disco, 70s with big bell-bottom pants, 80s with the big hair, foam party. It turned out it wasn't the 80s, it was the 1880s. Actually, I'm not sure that's right. It was just old, like way before my time old. CL said we'd be doing lots of waltzing and group dancing tonight. That made me nervous as I had no idea how to do that. The costume was totally awesome. It started out with a white frilly undershirt that seemed to poke out everywhere. Layered over the top of that was a purple shirt, and layered over that was a purple tunic. The tunic was a work of art. It had gold stitching all along the edges and a beautiful JC monogrammed in the middle. It cinched in the back, so it hugged my slim waist and flared out over my hips. My lower half was clothed in bright white tights, which had been tailored to show off my ass and still provide plenty of room for my crotch tiger and two dragons. Since there was little holding it back, my manliness looked huge. I was a manly man's manly man. CL finished it all off with flat, purple shoes. I was thinking there was no way this was going to work until I saw myself in the mirror. Then I was like, damn, I look hot. The tunic gave structure to my shoulders and made my chest look bigger than it was. The way it flared out over my hips made my waist look tiny, and my tights made me look like a ballet dancer. This is just amazing, CL, I breathed. I kept turning in the mirror, checking out all the angles. I'm so glad you like it, young master, he said formally, but I knew he was happy. NL's wanted to do more with this, but she ended up spending most of her time on Sandy's dress. She did a fantastic job, I said. When you talk to her later, tell her I was very happy. I most certainly will, he said. Then he got a catch in his voice. I'm hoping to tell her so much in the time we have left. I looked up at him and saw both worry and hope written in his face. If I have anything to say about it, your time left will be measured in years, I said firmly. I could have said more, that I'd do the best I could, that I would fight like hell to not let him down, but he knew all that already. Instead, I put his arm around me and pulled him beside me in the mirror. Then I leaned into him, letting my presence and warmth say everything for me. For a while we stood there, seeing each other for who we were, two beings doing the best we could for those we loved. Now I was ready. We went into the living room to wait on the girls. I asked Bermuda if he wanted to come with us and cuddle, but I just got a sleepy look in reply. Sandy joined us later than I thought was possible, and she looked stunning. The first thing I noticed was her hair. She always just had it hanging straight down in the back in a ponytail, so it was a complete surprise to see it all artfully curled up with curly trails of hair framing her face. A bunch cascaded over one shoulder to fall artfully beside her breast, which had been pushed up and out. She wore makeup too, which took her to a whole nother level of beautiful. John would have done the whole Roger Rabbit bazinga if he could have seen her. Her dress was purple and flared way out, not like a Marie Antoinette hoop skirt out, but still pretty far. The dress parted in the front to show a gold skirt underneath it. I'm not sure what type of material it was, but the whole thing shimmered and twinkled as she moved. It all matched too, as the purple dress had gold thread accents in it, and the gold dress had purple accents. She looked stunning, like a fairy poking up out of a luscious flower. Sandy, you look amazing, I exclaimed. I honestly can't believe I look like this, she said in wonder. I like clothes that are practical and easy, as you know, but I have discovered that dressing up can be a lot of fun. She turned to NL, who had followed her out of the bedroom. Especially when I have someone as talented as you to help. I can't believe how good you made me look. And this dress, exquisite. NL blushed as we both poured on the praise. I meant every word of it. She was an artist. I absolutely loved the way Sandy and I looked. Balaji showed up shortly, so we said our goodbyes. I got full frontal llama kisses from both of them. They were both emotional but holding up. They were going to stay at our place while we were gone, as there was no sense in trying to go back to Llama Land. I'm sure all they wanted was some quality family time before NL put her life in my hands. Balaji flew us both to the dance, as there was no way Sandy could run in that dress. We arrived at the same ballroom we'd had the banquet in, but this time the chandeliers were fully lit and there was a full orchestra on tiered platforms at one end. Both sides had food stations and little alcoves for talking and lounging. I thought my costume was stage-worthy for any ballet show, but compared to everyone else, I was the budget production. Their outfits were intense. They'd pulled inspiration from everywhere, like Ms., Jane Austen, even Robin Hood Men in Tights, and every romantic period piece on Netflix. There were huge skirts, enormous hair, top hats, and cod pieces that were suitable for a horse. In short, Anna Lickett in her full glory could have shown up and fit right in. I loved it. The little gay boy in me was gagging over all the drama. I just wanted to run around and touch everything to make sure it was real. MM spotted us as soon as we came in and hurried over. He wasn't kidding about the centaur llamas taking precautions. He was in a full hazmat suit with thick rubber gloves and a clear face mask. "Put these on," he said, handing us 2 medallions. "They will protect you from most of the dangers tonight. Remember, the theme is deadly bite, so don't eat or drink anything unless I hand it to you. Got it?" "Yes," I replied, "and thank you for looking out for us again." "You are welcome," he bowed. "Actually, House Louisville is my only responsibility tonight." "Really?" I said. "How on earth did you manage that?" "I volunteered for the position," he said smugly. "You are currently very valuable to our nation, and the council wanted someone to keep an eye on you at the events and make sure you stayed safe. No more strange potions for you." "Well, cool," I said with a warm smile. "If someone keeps an eye on us, I'm glad it's you." MM practically glowed at my praise. Then he got our drink orders and whisked away. I was starting to feel the music when he came back. I'd ordered a frou-frou drink. The more frou, the better, and he had certainly delivered. The drink came in a fancy glass vase with 2 handles. There was a skewer of shaved kiwis with cherries in it, and an orange slice on the rim. The drink itself looked midnight blue at the bottom and faded up to an icy blue on the top. It tasted just as good as it looked, with a cool yet citrus vibe. Sandy had ordered a white wine and she took a deep sip and mmm'd in happiness. Balaji didn't have to worry about staying safe, so he ordered rum and arsenic. The drink glowed a swampy green and seemed to swirl on its own. It smelled good, but I wouldn't have taken a sip, even if he paid me. The dancing was very different from what I was used to. This was group dancing, where everyone seemed to step forward, then back, then around each other, switching partners every so often. Some of the dancers kept the steps simple, but some of them went all out and added a lot of flair. It kind of reminded me of the barn dances you see in the old Western movies, only in a much more elegant setting. We chatted and watched for a bit, and the music started seeping into my bones. Without meaning to, I started tapping my foot and swaying in time to the beat. Amaya showed up and pulled Sandy into the dance. She protested, but I could see she was starting to feel the music too. It turns out she was a fantastic dancer. Even though she was weighted down by all her unfamiliar clothes, she still seemed to float across the floor. "Would you like to dance?" Balaji asked with a bow. I tested my leg. Could I dance? Would it hold my weight now? I was thinking it might. I sucked down the last of my delicious cocktail and took Balaji's hand. He pulled me into the flow, and the dancers seemed to part before us. He found a spot he liked, and soon we were rhythmically stepping together. Balaji's outfit was poofy, which I had thought seemed strange at first, but now it made sense. He had those big poofy shoulders and big poofy high-waisted pants. Standing still, he looked like a weird puffer fish, but once he was in motion, all that poof turned into pure rhythmic awesomeness. Balaji was smooth, like Usher smooth. He was the love child of Fred Astaire and Derek Huff, and if you took all of BTS and smashed them into one person, that was Balaji. He took the basic steps and made them look like poetry. I watched him with more than my eyes. I watched him with my magic sight, and soon that took over everything. I closed my eyes and just felt him. I felt the way his magic flowed through the air like water, how he touched the earth with the ease of the wind, how he had a fiery passion at the center of his being. Without thinking about it, I copied him, just like I'd copied Tyler. It wasn't at the same level, of course. I'd been sleeping with Tyler and we'd just traded magic, so our bond was crazy intimate. But still, I was feeling Balaji and his smooth moves. I let the music flow through me, and it touched that knot of worry sitting inside me. I let the knot unravel, and for a while I was butter in motion. Balaji kicked it up and added more flair. I was right with him. The music changed into the next song and the dance pattern shifted. I faltered for a few steps, but I quickly understood the pattern and picked right back up again. I finally opened my eyes and became lost in the kaleidoscope of colors and costumes. The song changed again and again and again, every time I found my groove and settled even more into the motion. I'd danced before, but not like this. I danced at the clubs, sometimes with a partner, but usually on my own. I knew some moves, and I danced a celebration of life before, though never with powers like this. This was the power of the group. I was part of them and they were a part of me. Together we were so much more than dancing on our own. Balaji finally suggested we take a break, and we quickly touched base with Sandy and Amaya. MM plied us with drinks and food, and I realized I was still ravenous. "Have either of you danced professionally?" Amaya asked. I was stuffing my face, so Sandy answered first. "I always liked to dance as a kid, but that was a long time ago. I'm not sure I've danced since I became a supernatural. I never realized how much I'd like it. What about you, Jason?" I hastily swallowed my potato chip, scorpion-looking thing, and took a quick sip of my new frou-frou concoction. I've danced in the clubs before, but I wouldn't say I was great at it. I'm not bad, mind you, but not great. It was nothing like tonight. Tonight I felt connected and so smooth. I couldn't believe how much fun it has been. Amaya and Balaji shared a look. "It certainly has been wonderful seeing the both of you pick this up," Amaya said. "Sandy, when you got on the floor, I realized why you were a prodigy. I've never seen anyone pick up the steps so fast or make them look so good." She turned to me, "And that was all before I saw you, Jason. You picked it up so fast it was extraordinary. Then you added flair, and then you managed to make it look effortless, like you'd been dancing this way for years." I just shrugged. I didn't want to make a big deal out of this, even with our new friends. Sandy is fire, and she's been a battle mage for years. Dancing is sort of like fighting, but without all the guts and broken bones. So it made sense she would be wonderful at it. We smiled at each other. I'm a Sandy fan. She's just awesome in my book. As for me, I've been training like this, so when Balaji started dancing like Fred Astaire, I just tapped into what he was doing and went with the flow. Amaya looked like she was going to say more, but then she dropped it and changed the subject. We finished eating and headed out on the dance floor again. This time we went together as a group, and again I had a lot of fun. I wish the rest of our house were here. John was old enough to have danced like this in his youth, and he would have loved the way that Sandy looked. Annabeth would have adored the music, and Tyler hopefully would have adored me. Certainly I would have adored him. For a moment I lost myself in the vision of Tyler dressed in tights, a sexy jacket, and his shirt open to the waist, rocking a Spanish 1500s flair. Yowza. Tyler wasn't even here, and he put all these other posers to shame. I missed him. The music played on, and a few songs later we took a break again. My leg was starting to remind me it only just healed and wasn't up to full strength yet. I'd had a wonderful evening and it was time to head home. I opened my mouth to say something when suddenly I heard a oof and a centaur llama carrying a tray of drinks tripped. I was too surprised to move, and a split second later Sandy and I were covered in liquid. My first thought was this was no big deal. It was just drinks. I had been doused with liquor before, and I'd just taken it as a good excuse to take my shirt off. My next thought was my beautiful costume was ruined. Then I thought about CL's Feather C250. That might be able to fix it. Then I saw the horror on Balaji's face. What? It wasn't that bad. Oh crap! It's deadly bite night. Those drinks were poisoned. Not again. Amaya and Balaji were already in action, and the liquid flew off of me. I looked over at Sandy. She was fine. There wasn't a spot on her. I looked down at myself. There wasn't a spot on me either. I could see the splatters on the chair though, and they were steaming as the liquid ate into it. Holy crap. I'm sorry. The waiter looked terrified. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. Just then we heard a blood-curdling shriek. I turned around and a mage dressed like Spanish nobility was limping away as fast as possible. Blood and magic were streaming down his leg. And standing there, spitting out a piece of the mage and looking very satisfied with himself, was Bermuda. He nonchalantly wandered over, as only a cat can, and pawed the air for me to pick him up, which of course I did. Our area was quickly swarmed by hazmat centaurs, and we were ushered away from the spill. It took a few minutes, but it quickly became clear the spill had been intentional. A mage had ordered several of the most deadly drinks they had, and then requested they be delivered to a spot that would have the waiter pass right by us. There should be no way a centaur llama with 4 perfectly good feet should trip right beside us, but that is what happened. What saved us from any harm was the medallions that MM had given us. They had been given to the wait staff for extra protection for the evening, and MM had wrangled 2 more for us. It turned out that was the best thinking of the night. The medallions, along with Balaji and Amaya's quick action, had kept us completely safe. Even our beautiful outfits were fine. Well, except for little cat hair, but that would come off. Sandy assured the waiter we were just fine, that he wasn't in trouble, and that this was not his fault. Then she thanked the hazmat staff for their quick action. Meanwhile, I thanked Balaji and Amaya for being so battle-ready, and MM for doing such a wonderful job watching out for us. Nobody knew who Bermuda had attacked, but I was pretty sure he was the mage who was responsible for all this. If we hadn't had something more important to do, it would have been fun to hunt him down. The others seemed to think the mage would heal quickly and get away scot-free. I knew better. Bermuda's attack did more than just physical damage. I'm sure it had torn the mage's aura too. His natural magic had been leaking out, and it would take more than a simple healing charm to fix that. Rotten mages went boom after Bermuda clawed them. I don't know what a regular mage did, but this one was going to find out. However it turned out, I was sure he was going to be hurting for a long time. That was enough for me, and I was all right with leaving it at that. And that ends our chapter. So the next week we're going to talk about going back to the room and healing NL and getting the show on the road that way, her core. All right. Thank you. Y'all have a wonderful weekend.